Welcome back viewers, ladies, gentlemen, non-binaries and anyone with ears or other sound detection organs, hope you enjoy. We are continuing with Doom Guy Isekai by Angry Spider.
Chapter 14, Here Comes the Doom. It was a sea of blood, and the soldier couldn't be happier. Literally covered from head to toe in gore and various body parts, a demon's skull splattered on his helmet with most of the bones sticking out, the soldier was on top of the world. Well, technically he was underneath it, but the comparison still held true even considering his situation. After he'd summoned the chain gun, the demons had been mowed down with all the efficiency and speed of, well, there wasn't much that could be compared to it. The soldier had more than plenty of experience when it came to accurately eliminating ridiculously massive crowds of enemies, but even that wasn't what he was happy about. Alice was wandering around with his shotgun one-handed, checking for survivors. Initially, she'd been reluctant to end the lives of mostly disabled demons, but then one of them had singed her blonde hair with a fireball. Very little mercy had been dispensed after that. None, in fact. The soldier was glad to see her view on how to treat demons maturing. When he had first met her, she had still considered their lives to be almost equal to hers. That perspective was pretty much dead at this point, much like her enemies. In this case, the soldier was indescribably happy because he had hit level 75, and, Handyman, had a perk for him. Just the perk he needed, in fact.
Congratulations on hitting LVL 75, it's still been less than a week, you freak show. You may select between two class exclusive perks. Consider this a generosity after last time. I'm just saying, you could maybe threaten me a bit less. I'm not giving you both perks no matter what, alright? Mayhem Momentum. This perk, similar to Blood of Thy Enemies, is based on how much blood you have made contact with. It improves your physical attributes by 1 point for each enemy you have slain in close range. Bathing in the blood of your enemies will improve the perk for 1 hour, refreshing every time you take another bloodbath, get it, but is nullified if you shower or bathe in anything that isn't blood. Genocide. Ever wanted to just end an entire species? With Genocide, you can. This one-use perk allows you to specify a given race, against which you gain a 10% resistance across the board, not to mention a 15% increase in stabbing, shooting, and bludgeoning damage. These boosts will only apply to the enemies that fall under the perk's designated umbrella, however. Note, enemies killed under the Genocide perk will have their souls sealed to their bodies, resulting in partial permadeath. Bet you're gonna have a hard time picking between these, They're both legendary perks. This is what you get for messing with the system, you absolute monster. Please don't hurt me, it's a joke.
He'd had to have Handyman explain it in a little more detail, and the helpful perk had obliged. Evidently, respawning involved severing the soul's connection with the body and pulling the soul to a safe location, where a body was constructed from mana. The process wasn't that different from the soldier's method of summoning his weapons. Genocide would make it so that whenever he killed an enemy under its species specification, their souls would be bound to their bodies instead of being severed. Technically speaking, they could still be resurrected and have their souls unbound, but they would have to have the majority of their body parts still intact. That might have been an issue for most. Thankfully, the soldier wasn't in the habit of leaving much behind. Reaching a hand out, he selected Genocide, and the board blipped pleasantly.
Good choice. Select the species you wish to render extinct.
With a forceful thought, the soldier gave it his response.
Alright then. The species known as demons will be rendered the sole target of your unending wrath. Are you sure of this decision? It is irrevocable. Please note that demons refers to exclusively the subspecies of hellspawn, and does not cover imps, archdemons, blood ogres, or disasters.
The soldier's index finger paused an inch away from the button, and he let out an inaudible sigh of relief. That was close. Focusing his attention on the board, he revised his decision.
Alright then. The species known as Hellspawn will be rendered the sole target of your unending wrath. Are you sure of this decision? It is irrevocable.
The soldier's finger crashed down on the Y button hard enough to crack the board, and it dissipated with a somewhat rickety blip. A moment later, the soldier felt a slight surge of newness. Looking down at his hand, the soldier clenched it into a fist. He wasn't sure how he knew, it was more of a second sense than anything else, but he knew that the demons he slew from this point on would stay dead. He'd have to ask Alice to only maim her enemies, or at least the demonic ones. He hadn't put much thought towards what would happen if or when he made it to the Earth equivalent of this universe. He knew that it existed, presumably, Alice was from there, as she'd called it the overworld. He had the vaguest memory of blue skies, but there was no way to be sure that this world would have blue skies in their version of Earth. As far as he knew, it could be more similar to Mars. Alice shouted, distracting him. "Whoa, Doom! Look at ELD." Glancing over, the soldier saw ELD drop the slowly stiffening and recently mauled corpse of a demon. Her head was shaking a bit, a low whimper coming from her as she dropped to the ground, her tail swishing through the blood and making waves. Wading over to her, the soldier put a hand on her forehead, and she whined in response. Her head felt unhealthily hot, and was actually steaming from the heat. The soldier was far from panicking. He'd lost the capacity to do so sometime after slaying his first monster on Earth, from the invasion from Hell. There wasn't much point in losing coherency, even though he was sincerely worried about his giant pet dog.
Whoa, your pet is evolving. It appears she dislikes the option currently set out for her, and is resulting in significant amounts of pain. Is there anything you would like to say to her?
The soldier patted her head, aware of Alice as she splashed over to him, a concerned expression on her face. Rubbing ELD's soft fur, the soldier leaned close and whispered into her ear.
Doom.
He had very little sentiment left in him. It was the result of endless years gunning down demons all on his own, with only his rage and the knowledge that he was single-handedly keeping humanity safe, keeping his company. Despite that, ELD was the first companion he'd had that he could remember in years, and she'd stuck with him in spite of the more or less unending massacre that he brought to the table. Slight in sentiment he might be, but he still had a marginal amount left in the tank. It was that fraction of sentiment that made its way through the otherwise seriously intimidating word, and ELD grabbed a hold of it like a lifeline. Growling, she got to her feet, her head vibrating rapidly at this point. Standing back, the soldier pulled Alice back to give ELD some space, and the hellhound howled at the sky. As she did, her head split in half, quickly fixing itself as her shoulders broadened. At the same time, bulky brown armor formed on the dog's shoulders and upper back, leaving her tail end and legs bare. The two halves of her head were now two heads, one with a small white spot on its left ear and the other with a matching spot on its right ear. Several plates of dense-looking armor crawled up both heads' necks, extending to the sides of their jaws and wrapping part of the way over their foreheads. Shaking herself off, ELD examined the other head, which was experimentally sniffing at the new armor. Pacing forward, the soldier raised both hands, and the dogs, shoved their heads into his palms, happily licking at his gloves.
Wow! Your hellhound hit LVL 100 and evolved into a Orthrus, Predator variant. Your insanity is starting to seep into my creatures. I'm going to go set up some apocalypse bunkers for all the species I want to survive, and I'm not telling you where they are.
End of chapter. If you enjoyed, like, subscribe, click the bell so you don't miss any episode and do all the other YouTube stuff. Visit and support the author, all the relevant links are in the doobly-doo, and comment your opinions, good or bad. And I'll see you next time. And as usual, have a wonderful day.